So in part two, we're going to look at act utilitarianism and rule utilitarianism. So act utilitarianism is not just looking at rules, but it's looking at results or consequences of action. So the idea, as they put it in your textbook, that you act for the greatest good for the greatest number of people. What is the best decision you can make to make the most people happy? And deciding what's the best act involves the 3 steps listed here: surveying all possible outcomes of an action, predicting what consequences there may be, and calculating which action results in the most happiness and least suffering. And you can probably already see some problems with this. It's very difficult to look in the future and see all the possible permutations of what could happen once this result has been, this action has been taken, and what kind of consequences may come. So we're going to see how that plays into the weaknesses in a moment here. So I'm going to kind of go through this example here because I think it's a pretty good illustration, and then there's another example coming up that'll illustrate another part of this. So we've got an explorer wandering with his party and encounters a group of bandits. The bandit chief says, you know what, you're the head explorer. If you kill 4 of your own people, then I'll let you go. If you don't choose to kill 4 people, then I'll kill all of you. So an act utilitarian would say, well, if I make that decision, 4 people will die. And you see this in crime movies all the time, right? The hero's given this kind of choice. If I make the decision, 4 people will die. If I refuse to cooperate, we'll all die, right? So to him, the best course of action would be, well, I'll cut my losses and shoot the 4 people, and then at least 7 of us will live. Of course, weighing the consequences, I have to think, well, what happens if the bandit reneges on his promise and kills us all anyway? So then I have the murder of these people on my shoulders. So an act utilitarian doesn't rank anybody's lives over anybody else's. It's just all about the numbers. It's not like, kill everybody to keep the president safe kind of thinking, right? Unless he kind of looks at it from, well, the president being kept safe will mean X number of lives are kept safe as well. So it can be very messy trying to predict consequences and to make the right decision. I'm going to skip over this slide. You can read this on your own. So some of the weaknesses of act utilitarianism are this chaos theory, right? Even the smallest action can put into motion things that we have no control over. And again, I like this little story. And this comes up a lot with, if you could go back in time and kill Hitler, would you? Or kill any, mass murderer or criminal? So here's the story. Let's say we save 2 boys, Tim and Mike, from the river. Tim goes on to be a model citizen, great person all around. Mike is a criminal. He makes other people miserable. And we think, oh gosh, some mixed consequences here. Maybe we should have saved Tim. That was smart because he's going on to do good things, but saving Mike seems to have negative consequences here. Wow, we were justified in saving one, maybe not so much in the other. However, what happens if later on Mike turns around? He gets married, has a family, straightens up, becomes this model citizen. Tim, on the other hand, maybe he has a breakup with a girlfriend, he spirals out of control, develops a mental illness, who knows? He turns into a mass shooter. Well, now who should we have saved, right? So we only have limited ability to predict what's going to happen in the future, and that's problematic. That whole chaos theory. We have no control over things in the future. All we can do is have a reasonable prediction of future events. That's the best we can do in making these kind of act utilitarian decisions. What could be or should be or might be the best decisions we can make for the largest number of people based on the information we have right now. Another weakness is this idea of incommensurability. So when things aren't comparable to each other, they're incommensurable. And things like when we offer, like in a settlement in court, a court settlement or something for maybe a factory collapses and people die, and instead of going to court, you're offered money right? This kind of grew out of an old Viking and also Anglo-Saxon kind of idea of called Vergelt. So instead of you killed my son, I'm going to kill your son, and having that feud perpetuate, you killed my son, so that I don't kill yours, give me 50 gold coins or whatever you felt like that life was worth, right? No amount of money is ever going to replace the life of your son, but that's kind of how this court system worked, right? They settle on a particular sum of money, even though that's not commensurable for your loss and suffering. So this comes up with things that are intangible, things that can't be counted. Not every act that we have to make a decision on is something that can be counted. 30 people live, 20 people die, that sort of thing. Sometimes it's intangible, suffering, happiness. Those are things that can't be counted. Injustice, I love this one. So again, just counting on numbers is not always the best solution. So we have a doctor here who's been saving lives in developing countries, often for free, for decades. He suffers a bout of depression after his wife dies, and he's involved in a bar brawl where he kills a man. Should he go to jail for that crime, knowing that we put this doctor behind bars and he'll no longer be able to help as many people as he's been helping? Does that make sense? Well, we don't know. We don't know what he's going to turn out to be. Maybe after this bout of depression, he develops other mental illnesses and kills more people. Maybe he's never going to be a good doctor again. We don't know. So what would be just in this particular situation? Should he have to pay for his particular crime? Or does he get to go free so he can help more people, right? So the final thing we're going to look at is rule utilitarianism. This is sort of utilitarianism modified. It's kind of combining deontology, which is a focus on rules, with utilitarianism, which is a focus on happiness maximization, I guess you'd call it. So trying to come up with rules so there's more consistency that still has an eye, when possible, to special obligations and situation. So for this example here, don't punish the innocent. Let's say that's a rule we decide on. The prediction is that the consequence of following this rule will most frequently result in happiness. Again, that most, that qualifier. Since it's a rule, we adopt it without exception, even though there will be an occasional case where punishing the innocent may produce more happiness, right? There might be times if we punish someone, maybe a criminal who's already in jail, and pin a crime on him to make the family happy that the criminal has been caught, right? I mean, you can think again of crime shows where this happens all the time. But we'll select our rules based on the prediction of what will produce the greatest amount of happiness. So it's a combination of both rules and utilitarianism.